Kendell Lenice, and welcome to Kendell Lenice Live. This is my YouTube channel, and this is a show that I have on YouTube just for you. As you guys know, I'm all about education, elevation, and entertainment. So I'm so excited about this Kendell Lenice Live interview series because I have amazing guests, just like the one that I have today. I'm so excited. I found this young lady on Instagram, and I was totally impressed. So I wanted you all to be impressed as well. I'm so glad that she answered the call and decided to come on here with me today. I have Brea. She is out of Houston, Texas. She is a licensed professional counselor. So who doesn't need counseling? Everyone needs counseling. Everyone needs some tips and tools to get through this thing called life. I was so impressed with her because she's a young lady. She's beautiful, she's talented, and she knows her stuff. And I wanted to present her to you all. Brea, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Look at her. Isn't she adorable? I said I would embarrass her. I'm sorry if I'm embarrassing you.
All good.
But as a mom, I told her earlier, because she's the same age as my daughter, and I said it's so impressive that you're walking in your purpose and your truth, and you're really doing what you were called to do. I said that the older generation kind of did what other people told them to do and what they were good at, and they followed paths only later to change paths and do something different. So I really wanted to show this representation of a counselor. She might look like nothing you've ever seen, and I say that in the kindest way because she is young and she's impactful. So I want you to take away a lot of the things that she's talking about. But I want Brea, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am Brea. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm licensed in Pennsylvania and Texas. I lived in Pittsburgh for a few years, and I moved here about a year ago. So I have been counseling for about 4 or 5 years. I think it's coming actually up on 5 years of counseling. I work with all types of populations. Right now, I'm primarily working with like kids in the foster home. So I have 3 jobs. So I work with kids in the foster homes. I also work in a private practice group with adults. So I'm just transitioning back into adults. And then I also am on BetterHelp. So those are the 3 things I do right now. So I pretty much have experience with every population, honestly, as far as like age group, LGBT community, seriously mentally ill. I've done a little bit of everything, and I worked hard to be able to do that. So that's me.
That's awesome. And I'm proud of what you're doing. Even though I don't know you personally, I'm proud to see what you're doing to help people, because really that's what I'm all about. So I always celebrate and appreciate people who are willing to give themselves to others to make them better. So we're going to talk about a lot today. We're going to focus a lot on triggers and how to recognize triggers. But before we get into that, I want to know what counseling is like during this quarantine time. And are you doing it virtually? And what are some of the things you're seeing that people are dealing with?
So right now I'm doing virtually, I'm doing audio, and I also am going to someone's home to see them, because that's just, I'm an essential worker. So they continue us to work. So what I'm seeing right now is definitely a heightened amount of anxiety in a lot of people. My kids, for sure, they're not really understanding what's going on. So they're definitely anxious as far as like just what's going on. So to just put it in, I guess, basic terms, you just see a lot of anxiety right now. People trying to manage it as best as they can. And as therapists, we do not have all the answers. So we're just doing our best to make sure that people are using their coping strategies and remaining as calm as they can, or, just really giving them an outlet to not be calm and to help them manage some of that anxiety and put it somewhere,
Yeah, I totally know. And I get it, and I understand. I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with anxiety, especially during this time, because people suffer from anxiety all the time. But I'm sure it's heightened during this quarantine time. Before we talk about triggers and how to identify them, I just want to touch more on anxiety. So you talked about coping skills. What are some of the coping skills that people, even if they don't contact you, that they can do for themselves just to get them over that moment?
So there are different types of coping skills. So I always teach my clients how to process, but also how to distract sometimes, because sometimes you need a distraction because you can't fully just process something outright, So different distraction techniques would be like, well, let me go read a book. Let me go take a shower. You know, showers are actually really good for your body, and that the heat helps to like, you know, soothe you a bit, you know, and then also things like watching TV or playing with your kid. Processing would be like talking to a friend, journaling, you know, doing a breathing exercise, things of that sort. They just help you get back to your grounded. So things of that sort can be very helpful.
Okay. And do you find it more challenging to deal with adults or children?
Gosh, I would say they have their days. I would say adults, because they have a better understanding of what's going on. I think some of the kids are kind of just like, oh, I have to stay in the house. Okay. You know what I mean? Like they kind of move on to the next thing. That's how kids are, depending on intellect and like what age you're dealing with. But the adults, I think they process in a different way and they fixate on things, whereas kids go to the next thing. You could distract a kid in a second, okay? The kids I work with, at least, I can distract them in a second with a game or talking about something different, but the adults have real fears. Or it's triggering a traumatic experience they've had before, and it's bringing it up for them. So now this situation is just further adding on to their trauma.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Even with people, I know this is a little off track, but not. Even when people have daycare centers, and I know people that own daycare centers, they always say it's not the children, it's the adults, it's the parents.
Yeah, I've had that experience.
And I can see, and I can see that because of just exactly how you explained it beautifully. All right. So you had something on your Instagram that I found fascinating and informative, and a lot of things I was like, yeah, she's right on target, as if I was, you know, correcting you, but I wasn't. I just was agreeing with you internally. But you talked about identifying triggers. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay, so identifying triggers. So triggers can be negative and positive. When I talk about them in therapy, it's more so we're identifying maybe a negative experience has happened to you. And sometimes when a negative experience happens to you, it triggers certain things, certain memories or certain sensations within your body. So I talked about that to help people understand that, you know, if you're kind of walking around and you don't really understand what triggers you or what makes you upset, what causes emotional upset or physical upset in your body, then you're probably going to be very uninformed about what's going on with you and very confused about your emotions. And a key thing to learn in therapy that a lot of people learn is how to really know yourself. It makes you feel secure and it helps you to navigate what you can do when you do feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? When it comes to being in a triggering situation.
Yeah. Because, okay, so I'm just going to look at this. You said step 1, identify the emotion that is coming up for you. Is that easy for people to do? And how do you identify the emotion?
It's honestly not easy. It truly isn't. It's something that I definitely learned when I was in grad school. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I don't think this, I know this, there's different facets of emotions, right? We have primary emotions, secondary emotions, and we have a third tier of emotions that we feel. Most times we use the third tier because we don't want to get to the root. The primary emotions are our root. So a lot of people don't know that. And I think a lot of people don't really want to come to grips with handling that emotion. So they might express it with angry outbursts or crying excessively or just doing different things to get it out. But once you identify the root and exactly what you're feeling, I think you will feel a lot better. Because I know I did when I figured it out, you know. Oh, I'm feeling really sad right now because I miss that person, you know, just kind of being real with yourself about what's happening for you.
So you're really just saying own your feelings. If that's what you're feeling, own that. And if you can't own it, you really can't identify it. So it's really about owning it. I'm feeling sad right now. I'm feeling unhappy right now. I'm disappointed right now. She's talking about really owning that feeling, identifying that feeling. So some of you might say owning, some say identify, just so you understand it's all the same. Just really owning what you're feeling right now in order to identify it. And then once you identify it, you're able to do something about that feeling, whatever that next step is.
Right. Because if you don't own it, then you kind of just are in a place where you feel discombobulated. Or I think sometimes people judge themselves for feeling a certain way, but I always tell even my kids that I talk to, like, your feelings are always valid. Whatever you feel is valid, but your action, the action we have to work on, because just because you feel angry doesn't mean you go punch someone in the face, right?
Right.
But you feeling angry, that's valid. But the punching part, we got to work on that, right? We can't be doing.
Right. And I had a conversation with a group of ladies and we were talking about that. And that's just something that's very important to me, to really validate your own feelings and own really what you're feeling, because what you're feeling, a lot of people say, well, is this wrong that I'm feeling this way? Is this right that I'm feeling this way? And it's like, whatever you think, because you have to validate your own feelings, right?
Yeah, for sure. You can't expect other people. Now there's a component where we do want reassurance, because sometimes you're like, am I tripping? And you want to ask a friend. That's cool. You know, sometimes I do that with my sisters, you know?
Yeah.
But as far as like just being like, oh, I shouldn't feel that way, that further just pulls you away from identifying the emotion and why it's making you upset, because you're doubting yourself, or you're just making yourself feel bad for being human, is what I think. You're being mean to yourself for experiencing human feelings and having a human experience.
Yeah, so good. I agree. All right. So step 2, you say identify the sensations in your body. Can you go further into that?
Okay, so when I teach this to the kids, I draw like a little gingerbread guy, and I say, okay, what are you experiencing in your body when you become angry? And I make sure I do each emotion, the primary one, so they know that they're different, right? So I make sure I go, okay, what's your facial expression like when you feel angry? What's your body do? And they might say, my hands squeeze up. Oh, my teeth clench. Oh, my stomach hurts really bad when I get angry. So it's just very important to understand just what you're feeling in your body, because I did steps, right? But these steps happen at the same time. As far as you're feeling in your body, those two happen at the same time. So you want to be able to connect the two and be like, okay, I'm feeling angry. My stomach hurts. My hands are clenched. You know, I'm feeling impulsive. So that's what I meant by identify sensations going on in your body.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So step 3 is review possible events that have triggered you.
Okay, so this is the part where you are trying to identify exactly what the root of what's going on with you. Are you triggered by something that happened to you in the past? Is somebody annoying you? Like, what's going on for you? So triggering identifying rather the what's happening for you or what's around you is going to be very important.
Yeah, and how do you find that works with people? Just really trying to go back to the event or the person that hurt you. Is that difficult for a lot of people to do?
Honestly, when you start picking it apart with my clients, honestly, it's not that difficult. But I think in the moment, it's extremely hard, because you might be carrying that around with you and you're trying to figure it out for yourself. And you're not just always in your emotions. You have everyday life things happening to you. But I think when you're in therapy and you can talk through your day and you could say, okay, well, I noticed this happened to you when you were a kid. Do you think that's connected to when she said this to you and how that made you feel?
Yeah.
And then the light bulb starts going off for some people, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say that people protect other people over healing themselves. So people always choose, and sometimes not even knowing, but they choose to protect other people while they're still hurting and they're still, trying to heal. So they choose that over their healing. Do you see that sometimes, that when you're dealing with people and dealing with clients, that sometimes it's hard for them to go back because they know that they have to address that? So instead of really addressing that and maybe addressing that person later on down the therapy line, they hold on to their hurt opposed to healing because they don't want to expose them or what's really happened in their lives.
Yeah, I definitely see that with a lot of clients. A lot of guilt. Sometimes it's codependency, so they feel like they're going to portray that person if they talk about their experience, like they're talking badly about them in some component, in some way rather. So yeah, I see that a lot in a lot of people. And sometimes, honestly, it's an avoidance tactic as well. It just depends. Every client is different, you know what I mean? But some people will use that as an avoidance tactic, so they don't really have to relive that experience. Because if you think about it, even talking about it is reliving it. Like the emotions come back up to you, even if you were a child when it happened. It's like, why are you making me re-experience this event that I don't want to, Yeah.
So what do you tell that person? Because I know that it's for their healing. So what do you tell that person that says, I don't want to go back there because it's making me relive it? What do you tell them? How do you position that benefit for them, just really telling what happened in order to get over it? And I don't want to say, and say get over it lightly.
Yeah.
So live.
I would tell that person, well, first I always make sure that I'm very clear about their goals, because you can't force a person to discuss certain things they don't want to talk about. But I will say, hey, we have to go through this. We can't go around it. And if you're here because you want to heal, that's something that we're going to have to talk about at some point. And during each session, I just make it not uncomfortable, obviously, but I just make it a point to maybe address it in small ways so that
Mm-hmm.
discuss it at some point. Most clients are open to that once you build a rapport. But if you just off the bat do that, a client is not going to be receptive to you touching their hot spots just yet, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So number 3, as we said, you said review the possible events. And then number 4 is to get specific about why these events triggered you. So why is it important to get specific about it?
Getting specific, meaning like really honing in on the feeling, getting back down to the root of why that's making you upset in some way. So really just kind of going through, okay, identify what the emotion was, identify what my body was feeling, identify the possible events and maybe what happened. Now let's get specific about what's really real and what's happening for me so that I can further identify this as a trigger so that I don't keep re-triggering myself over and over and over and expecting a different result.
And I'm glad that you said that. And I wanted you to say that. So you said that beautifully, because at first you say review, and that's really to just get you revved up so you know that you can review, like just go through your mind and say, okay, this person did this person did that. But then really to get specific in order to target whatever that is to help that person in whatever they're asking you for. Right?
Yeah. For sure. Review my day, review what happened, review if I was in a bad mood when I woke up, you know what I mean? And then get specific, like, okay, this really stands out to me. Oh, this might have happened to me when I was a kid, and that's why this triggered me when she said X, Y, and Z. So that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people have triggers, and a lot of people don't understand why. But now we are in a time, as we talked even before camera, about people really taking ownership of their lives and really just living how they want to live and really want to be healed and really want to be whole and really want to live an abundant life in the best life that they can live. So I'm so proud and glad to see that a lot of people are really trying to do that self-work. When you see somebody trying to come to you or they're questioning, asking you different things in person, on social media, during your sessions, how does that make you feel that people really want help?
It makes me feel really good because I think that when my parents were coming up, I don't think it was like this. And me growing up, therapy wasn't really like something that my parents would say, no, never, but it wasn't something that was like an idea. It was more so like, what happens in this household stays in this household, and that's just that. Right. You know what I mean? So it makes me feel really good that like the world is progressing when it comes to mental health, because I know it's so corny, but like mental health is like, it's just wealth in every way of your life, because it's so important to be able to have a healthy mental so that you can move forward in your life and do the things that you want to do. You know what I mean? So it makes me happy to be a part of the generation that I am when it comes to mental health, at least, you know what I mean?
No, I'm telling you, and I say this all the time to everybody, you guys got to listen to the millennials, the Generation Zs, because they know they have their hand on the pulse. And a lot of older people think that they cannot learn from young people, that certain things are taboo, hide it under the rug, don't tell nobody your business, suffer in silence. And I want to eradicate that, because when I talk to older people, even in my generation and beyond, don't sell. Why are you saying so much of your business? Don't tell your business. But it's really about healing. And you're absolutely right. I can assume, and I don't like to assume, but I know your parents are in my age bracket or beyond, somewhere around there. And I know my generation and the generation that has come before me, no one talked about going to therapy. It was like that was a dirty little secret, that you had to go in the therapist's office with glasses on and a hat, and you had to wear a disguise, and no one talked about that. So I'm so thankful for your generation and even social media and a lot of things that are happening in life where it makes people feel okay to get help. And one of my favorite quotes is by motivational speaker Les Brown. He says, ask for help. Yeah, me too. I always say that's my play uncle. But he always says, ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And I think that's so powerful. So let's talk about that. what kind of encouragement, and we're going to get back into the triggers, I haven't forgotten, but what kind of, what can you say to someone who may or not be dealing with emotional wellness or mental wellness, and they're sitting at home and they really think, and they heard about therapy and they haven't gone, and they don't want the stigma, and people still think that you lay on the couch and, you know, and talk about your business while the therapist or counselor drills you on your life? What would you tell that person that's at home saying, I want to go to therapy, but I don't want to say I have a therapist, or that makes me look crazy, or that, and I hate that word, but that's a whole another show. But what would you tell that person to encourage them to seek therapy, if it's with you or not?
I would just encourage them to take a chance on themselves. You know, I think everybody needs help at some point. It doesn't mean you have to be a label or you're this or you're that. Everyone needs help and support, you know, and if I was talking to the person, I would try to help clarify what therapy is like, because some people do feel like it's a drill session, when in reality, you're working with the therapist. With my clients, it's like a team. Like, I'm not going to take the whole show and make it the Brea show, because it's not about that. It's about your healing and what you need. So I think I would just really encourage them to take a chance on themselves, to be honest. I mean, I myself have a therapist. Every therapist has a therapist. If they tell you they don't, they probably aren't telling you the truth, to be honest, because we all just need some help. And there's honestly no shame in that, you know. But also on the other side of it, it's just very hard to ask for help. It's extremely hard, especially if you were conditioned to think that it's weak-minded. And if a parent's told you, like, oh, you're crazy, that's going to make you feel like even more crazy. You know what I'm saying? But you got to do what's best for yourself. And if you need it, you need it. It's going to make you a better person, 100%.
Absolutely. And this past year, I always say, has been one of the hardest, and I would say challenging years of my life. There are a lot of events that took place, and some of them I talk about, you know, even on social media to help people. And last year, I believe it was I don't know if it was last May, maybe April, I started seeing a therapist, a wonderful woman, Black lady. And it's almost, and it really is, this is the thing, I help a lot of people, right? And I'm not saying that to say toot, I help a lot of people. I'm saying that in the context of everybody comes to me. So at some point, who do I go to? Who can give me a non-biased view on life? And it's so funny because it's so comfortable that even and this is not to say, and this was okay with me. We had this conversation, but even sometimes woven in there, we always say the last 10 minutes, she can kind of tell me, because I do what I do, just what's going on with her, and like just for an outlet in a sense. So the last 10 minutes, she'll kind of release a little bit, and that works for us. And I know typically therapy doesn't work that way, but it's about just feeling comfortable, you know, to just really just spew what's going on without anybody judging you. So I love that importance of that. It's just really just talking and just letting it out. What's the benefit? I know the personal benefit, but what's the benefit for someone to just let it out?
Honestly, as simple as it can be, honestly, feeling better, feeling understood. I think we all want a sense of belonging and feeling like someone gets it, or someone can empathize with what we're feeling, or they're just saying, hey, I get it, you know, and here are some things you can do to further yourself along. So honestly, just feeling better, because those pent up emotions, they're not going to do you any good. They're not, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny because when I first met her, I had never gone to therapy, and I didn't know, you know, what to expect. I knew similar, you know, I knew what to expect a little bit. I knew that I wasn't going to just be sitting on the couch. You know, I didn't have that whole vision, but I did know that it would be a place of healing, and that I would have to share. And I was all for that, because it's all for the betterment of thine self, you know, for everybody. It's a betterment just to make you better. And I just want to challenge everyone out there that are essential employees, or people who help other people, your professional helpers out there. And like Brea said, therapists have a therapist. I know life coaches have a life coach. Doctors have a doctor. You know, some people in a lot of different fields, use other people in that same field, utilize those people to help them whatever they're going through, whether it's a service or maybe even a product. If you sell if you sell headbands, or you make headbands, you might see someone online who makes headbands and you purchase their headbands. It doesn't mean that yours aren't good. It just means you might need something else. So we all need each other in this. So I will challenge all of the older folks to really try to give counseling and therapy a try, because I think it's so important to really focus on your mental health. All of this, you know, hair, makeup, clothes, none of that matters if you're broken on the inside. So I want to just talk to Brea, and I'm glad that she's on. I want to talk to you. I often talk about the broken pieces that people have in their lives. Can you talk a little bit about that, what you're seeing and what you know about people trying to put those pieces back together?
Well, I think of it in a different sense. I feel like we're all broken in some capacity because no one's perfect. And I try my best, I guess, with my clients, not to talk about putting the pieces back together, but creating a new or adding on,
I love that.
to your journey. Because, definitely the people that have the perfectionistic trait, that's just not something that we can talk about, because they already feel like, oh, I'm just messed up and I'm broken and no one's going to want me. So we just kind of work on, let's create a new person that can be that you're proud of. So I like to think of it like that. You know, have you ever seen that it's like a Chinese proverb, and they talk about when the glass is broken or some type of vase is broken? I'm probably saying it wrong, but that's fine. It's like when the glass is broken and they put it back together, they seal it with like this type of glue that's gold. And when it comes back together, it's beautiful. It's even more beautiful than it was. You know what I mean? So I think of it in that way, creating something different.
I love that. In life coaching, we call that reframing that story. Like just reframing that you're not broken. I love that. I love that you said that. Let's start anew. And I look at it and I totally agree with you. But I think the broken pieces sometimes are beautiful. They're beauty marks, they're beauty cracks. And just really just still, even if you're broken, own that and then start anew. You know, and I get what you're saying, and I totally agree. And I love that you said that, because I'm sure people do come to you and say, I'm broken. Like you said, nobody wants me. And that's so heartbreaking to just hear that. So how do you get past that? Because someone's watching right now and they're saying, I feel like nobody wants me. I feel like I'm broken. I don't know how to get past that. She's saying start anew, but how do you do that?
Right. I love that question, because that's so important. I feel like there's so many how-tos, and like you just never get to the how-to part. Like, okay, I do. So what I do with my clients is I talk with them about where they got that thought from, and I try to help them unravel it. I do a lot of what's it called, attachment theory type of things. And attachment theory is kind of going back to your childhood and figuring out your attachment style. So once I do that with them, I kind of help them, their inner child with them. Where'd you get that thought from? Who made you feel unloved and unwanted? And how do we heal that? How do we hear that child inside of you that feels broken or like no one wants her? Because it's not true. But until that person believes that, it's not gonna click. So we got to go back to figure out where it came from, whether it's childhood or adolescence or when you got in your first relationship. We gotta go through that and figure out how that developed. That's really important.
Yeah, going to the roots. I always found that a fascinating topic when I was in psychology class. That attachment theory, I think that is so powerful and so deep. And if you guys don't know about attachment theories and just that attachment and how that can shape your adulthood, you guys really need to go check that out and do some research on attachment theories, because I can almost guarantee you, until you decide to change it or till you even recognize it, like Brea said, just identify whatever that is. I think that if you go back to look at those attachment theories, you'll see yourself as an adult dealing with those same attachment theories, because it does start at the root. And then once we grow up, sometimes some of us, our development is arrested because you're not growing up. You're still almost like a grown child in a sense.
Like emotionally stunted. Yep.
Yes. So do you see that often where a lot of people may have been abused at 12 or, had some trauma at 12, and then when they come in, they're still that 12-year-old self because they weren't able to identify it and to really, move past that point in their lives?
Absolutely. I see that a lot. I see a lot of people that come in and they just don't know how to heal from that, or they don't know how to disconnect from what mommy or dad said to them when they were, or why mom or dad did the things they did to them, because they want answers. And the reality in some traumas, you don't really get the whys, but you do have to focus on how you can heal from it aside from the whys. And then with that too, it comes a component where we have to get to forgiveness, because some part of you is mad at yourself, but it's also mad at that person.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
until we really get through some of that, and it can take a long time until you get through some of that stuff. It's going to be kind of hard not to think of yourself as that 12-year-old that's scared and that's sad and doesn't know what to do with all their emotions. So it makes sense.
That's good. That's good. So you said that you primarily, and you deal with adults as well, but primarily you deal with children. What are some of the things that, just even as a therapist, you're still a counselor, you're still a person. So what are some of the things that they come in with? Of course, not disclosing names, we already know that, the confidentiality, but what are some of the things that some of the children see in their lifetimes and they have to seek therapy, and are some of them apprehensive when they first come to you?
Oh gosh, yes, the babies. I love kids, absolutely love kids. So it breaks my heart whenever, that's why I like working with them too, though, because I love them and because I want to help them get a voice. Because you think about it, kids, their brains aren't even developed. So they can't even process half of what happened to them. A lot of them have had things happen to them that most adults won't even experience. And in the foster care systems, a lot of these kids are mostly kids that have dealt with abuse. So I will say the kids that I deal with, it's a lot of physical abuse, a lot of sexual abuse, emotional abuse, running away, things of that sort. So those are the main things that I deal with when I go see my kids from the group home.
And how do you start that? Like, how do you start that first session with them? I know they have to feel comfortable with you. Is it typically quiet in the room, or are they just ready to just let it out because they're safe with you and they find someone who seems to care? What is that first session like with children?
It depends on the kid, but mostly I find that kids communicate through play. So I don't pressure the kids in the first couple of sessions at all. I don't pressure my kids at all to talk about things they don't want to talk about. I challenge them, but I'm not going to say you have to talk about this. So mostly our first session is, what's your favorite color? What do you like to do? What do you want to know about me? What's a therapist? Okay, how am I going to help you? Like, kind of just setting up like our rules and building our rapport so they know that we're not going to just sit here and cry the whole time. If you want to sit here and cry the whole time, that's okay. But some kids have the idea that like you're just going to be asking them a whole bunch of questions and making them want to, like, I don't know, tell other feelings. And I work with all boys. So not going to do that. So I use like basketball and Play-Doh and all types of things to kind of get them to open up. And Uno, kids will tell you a lot of things
Uno.
Just by playing a game with them. It distracts them, and then they'll start talking to you. It's so fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I think sometimes you might be able to incorporate that with adults too. What are the differences when you first go into a session with an adult? Is there Play-Doh and Uno involved?
So adults, not so much, but I always offer, hey, if someone wants to play with something, or I have like different little balls in my office all the time. So if they want to grab that and throw it at me, or not throw it at me, right, but like play catch or something, or just squeeze it as they talk, they're open to do that. But adults are a little bit more forthcoming when it comes to their trauma. I've always had adults kind of come in the office and wanting to really just tell me everything happening.
Because they're tired of it stuffing it down. They want to get it out. And I'm glad to hear that.
And no one's forcing them. No one's forcing them to go. For the adults, for the kids in the foster care system, they're mandated to be in therapy. So some of them are like, frankly, pissed off that they have to be there, you know? So you have to build that trust with them so that they trust you, because think about it, they're in the foster care system. So they're thinking you're just another person that's going to leave. So their attachment is already pretty solid. And I could try to unravel it before maybe it gets to a worse point.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important. I like that you say unravel, because a lot of people are bounded. by their traumas and the things that have happened in their lives. And the minute you start to unravel, I can almost imagine that there's some type of release and relief, you know, for these people. So you talked about having balls, and you talked about Play-Doh and Uno and all of these things in a session. And even when I've gone to my counselor's office, she has all of those little knickknacks and things. I never really pick them up, although she has some like affirmations, and I love that I look at. But why? I know why, but I want you to tell everyone, why do you have those type of things in the office? Why is that important?
Coping strategies. For sure, because sometimes when you're talking about something in the office or with the therapist, you become stressed out. You become triggered in the office. So my kids feel upset or you feel sad, you can grab the Play-Doh, you can do this. It also distracts you and it relaxes you as you're talking, and maybe if you're feeling something. So it's really just there to help soothe you, if anything. And, you know, my kids, I buy them Play-Doh, you know, so they can have it for themselves. So you don't only have it in the session. But when you come out of the session, you get to use that as a coping strategy and try your best to remember that that's there for you to help you calm down. Yeah.
And I know a lot of adults use that. If you look at some CEO's office, you'll see some type of toy in their office. And I want to talk about that. You said coping strategies, and we're going to get to 5 in the triggers, definitely. But coping strategies, if somebody is dealing with a rough time, someone doesn't like their job, they don't like their spouse, they don't, you know, like their life situation right now, and they feel like they're unraveling without the therapy. What do you say to that person? And I know you can't give a therapy session, but what is that one thing or maybe 2 things that you could say to that person if they just don't like anything?
Right. I think those are the resistant clients, right? So some people are like, I just don't like anything. But I would say the best thing they probably could do is to journal or talk with a friend if they can't talk to a therapist. But understand that you can't put all your problems and your issues on your friends and your spouse. You have to do your own healing. And that's what a therapist is.
Say that again, Brea. I need you to say that loud for the people in the back.
For sure. As far as like, you can't put all your issues on your friends. You know, you have to do the healing for yourself. So if I was talking to this person, I would probably segue back into therapy is probably going to be a really great way, because there's just these 2 things are going to help you if you're stressed. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, because the people that might have some of those issues, there's probably like other internal issues, internal conflict that they need to work through. And you can't just do 1 or 2 things to help that unless you're probably something that you have control over. You know what I mean? Like changing your job, if that's an option. You change your job, your mood might improve. But if you can't change your job because you have kids and things, your mood's probably going to spiral.
Absolutely. So, and I totally agree with you. I'm sitting here choking, but this is live. So I'll choke out and then I'll get some water. But okay. So we're talking about therapy. We're talking about counseling here. We're talking about getting some help. I have Brea. She is out of Houston, Texas. If you just tuned in, go back and listen to from the beginning and then catch up with us. All right. So somebody out there wants to go to therapy. I hear people talk about this, but they don't have insurance. They don't have money. They don't know how to afford it and filter it in with all of the other debt and bills that they have. What would you tell that person? Are there any resources out there, anything that they can do if they currently don't have insurance or they don't have the money to afford insurance?
So for sure. Okay. So you definitely can go on Psychology Today and look up a therapist in your area. And a lot of therapists have sliding scales. So when I had a therapist in Pittsburgh, her fee was like $150. I didn't have $150 a month to give her. So I decided, we had a conversation rather, actually, hey, I see you have a sliding scale. What can we do? I ended up paying like $35 for the session based on our conversation. So just make sure that before you count out that someone's willing to help you because of insurance, make sure you ask. Also, there's just different counseling. Like my job is tailored counseling, and our primary goal is to have people in. Let me say that again. I'm sorry. Our main goal is basically to have clients there that can afford the care. So our prices aren't as high as maybe a different private practice. So just make sure you Google and you just look around, you shop around a little bit before you just decide you can't afford because of insurance purposes. Also, BetterHelp, I work for as well, they do some sort of sliding scale. So you would just have to contact the billing department and let them know what you can pay, and they'll work with you. So you just got to ask questions, to be honest. I know that can be hard because you want to get it now, but you got to advocate for yourself.
But like Brea said earlier, she just said you got to advocate for yourself. And earlier she said you have to participate in your own healing. So if you can research where to find this purse, where to get this watch, where to go for the weekend, where the vacation you want to plan, you can do the research to get some help, because being emotionally healthy is just as important as going to your annual checkup appointment at your doctor's. And I know some of you don't do either. And I want to strongly recommend that you go to the doctor for physical as well as the emotional health that you need for your life. You talked about BetterHelp. Can you explain what that is? Because someone might have that in their area. Is this a global, is this a countrywide thing? What is BetterHelp?
So BetterHelp is an online counseling program, and
Are you saying help or help?
Help, H-E-L-P.
Okay.
Yep. So it is it's everywhere. Like I have clients in Jamaica. I have clients, another client in like the UK. So it is an online counseling. So on BetterHelp, you can either talk live with your counselor. You can do like a video session like me and Miss Kendall are doing right now, or you can do a phone call. So there's different options for the people that feel maybe just a little awkward about video chatting with someone they don't know just yet. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's BetterHelp. I think it's so awesome and it's so helpful for so many people. And Talkspace is another one that's very similar to BetterHelp.
Yeah, and it's so funny, I was going to ask you about that because I have a podcast and I listen to podcasts. I love podcasts, and they always talk about Talkspace.
Yep.
It's Talkspace, right? They always talk about Talkspace. And I know somebody looked it up and they said, well, they're expensive. But there are other places like that, and what's expensive to some may not be expensive to others. Because if you have disposable income to just, now it's so funny, there are a lot of memes going around where people are just buying unnecessary stuff because, right, because, they're bored at home or they're bored in the house. I had to do that because I do have TikTok, even though my kids don't. I told Brea I do. But people are bored in the house, so they're buying all of this stuff. I will challenge you to really invest some of that money into a therapy, maybe even your first therapy session, just so you can burst the myths, so you can see what it's really like to be able to let go and talk to someone you don't know that cannot judge anything that you're saying, and it's confidential. That's the thing. So I think it's so important to really just get it out and talk to someone. All right, so Brea, I want to get back on the train of triggers. So step 5, you have take inventory of the event that triggered you. Inventory.
So really just take note of your triggers. So make sure you write down, or you just put that in your pocket so that you know, okay, this triggers me. When this triggers me, I can do this. I have this coping strategy I can do, or I need to walk away because I know this is a triggering situation. Because triggers can be people, places, and things. So we just have to be aware of them so that we don't, continue to trigger ourselves, as we talked about before.
So if someone lives with a trigger, because there's someone out there with this quarantine, people's buttons are being pushed left and right because people are safe in the house together, where some couples, you're seeing that the divorce rate is going to be higher. People are really depressed and going through emotional challenges during this time. The anxiety level is sky high. So what would you tell someone who lives with a button pusher or who works closely with a button pusher and they know their trigger? How would they handle that?
I would say the best thing, and I work on this with my teenagers a lot because they feel as if sometimes maybe the guardian doesn't completely understand. what triggers them, so they keep getting re-triggered. So what I tell them to do is do your best to set boundaries and don't engage, don't engage. If a trigger for you is people arguing and yelling at you and your cousin's always doing that, don't engage, don't argue back, do your best to walk away. If you can, get it out to say like, hey, if you yell at me, I'm not going to engage with you. But setting boundaries is going to be really important. Also, doing your best to get outside. Go outside, go for a walk, listen to your music, do things that bring you joy. This is a tricky question because there's only so much you can do. You know what I mean? But you got to try to do the best that you can do and give yourself some grace, because you're trying to deal with a pandemic as well as deal with the triggers in your house. So you got to give yourself permission to give yourself some grace for trying to navigate how am I going to, how am I going to get through this? What am I going to do,
Give yourself permission. Give yourself grace. That's a message.
Yeah.
And that's real. Give yourself permission. Give yourself grace. You have to. And a lot of people are so hard on themselves. They're so hard on themselves. That person right now who is watching, he or she probably beat themselves up this morning, this evening, tonight. What would you tell that person? And I know, and that what you said is powerful. Give yourself grace. But that person that's going through it and they're like, what is grace? How do I give myself permission? Can you give them one thing that they need to do other than remove themselves from that person, go for a walk? What is something they can just go in the room, close the door and do?
Honestly, it's a thought process more than anything, because our thoughts control everything. So I would say when you're trying to give yourself permission, just really allow yourself to feel your emotion and be upset and not counter it with, I shouldn't be, or I need to do this. Like, no, just let yourself feel it. Let yourself be able to experience it and be mad. There's nothing that you can do in that moment, So that's what I mean when I say give yourself grace and permission. Like, you just got to give yourself, a pat on the back for even sustaining and dealing with the stuff you're dealing with. You can't always work really quickly to fix something, you just got to let it be sometimes. Perfect. Like the perfect advice some clients want to hear, but once you get to a place like that in your mind, you're going to be better able to understand it as far as, okay, I can't control this. That's okay. Okay, I'm upset. That's okay. Like, it's okay not to be okay.
That was perfect. Perfect. But you said beat. Did you say beat? And
yeah.
You said as an acronym. Go. You can't just skip over that. Go ahead. Say that again. I like that.
Beat yourself up.
No, I thought you gave an acronym at first. But you said beat yourself up. That's just as good. You can't beat yourself up, because it's a little off a little bit when we do it virtually, but it sounds like you gave an acronym. But that's right. That was a perfect definition. She said, don't beat yourself up. And so many people of all ages, whether you're 8 to 80 years old, you are still beating yourself up. Give yourself grace. Give yourself permission to just feel and just sit in that thing. Whatever you're feeling, just sit there. The whole key is just not staying there. You got to visit. You can't dwell. You can't live, move in, put a couch in. None of that. You have to just visit. And then you have to try to get some help or try to use your tools that you have that you probably don't even know you have to get through it.
I think a lot of people don't really know how to move out of that space though. And they don't know, like, I always tell my clients, like, okay, it's okay to be in that space, but we can't stay there, right? But no one can tell them when they're done being in that space. Like, I can't say, okay, we're out of the space now, right? Like, we're going to go here now. That's not fair. So what I try to just teach them is the tools to heal so they can move out of that space in their time, because that gives them power. It empowers them so much to be able to pick themselves up and move to a different space for themselves. I just so enjoy seeing that.
And also, even just by saying what you said to them, and I think it's so important. And I tell people this all the time, give yourself permission to just feel whatever you're feeling. I don't like when people say, don't cry. You shouldn't feel this way. Why are you feeling this way? You have no reason to feel this way. You cannot tell somebody how to feel, people.
And that just further activates the person. And then if you're the person that they wanted to confide in, they're no longer going to confide in you.
Yeah.
Period.
You're so right.
as they should, because it's very invalidating. And I won't say they shouldn't, because sometimes people say things they don't mean, right? So I want to be able to give them grace when it comes to that. But at the same time, it's very invalidating to hear somebody try to minimize what you're experiencing. Like, you're not me. You don't understand what I'm feeling. It'll probably pass. So right now, I'm in it, and this is what I'm experiencing, you know?
That's so right. I remember I was speaking at a conference across country. I don't want to say where, because that person will know and other people will be able to identify that person. But I was speaking at a conference across country, and there was a young lady in the bathroom, and she was crying her eyes out. And everybody kept coming out, oh my God, we're trying to get her to stop crying. We don't know what it is. And then I had to use the bathroom. So I just happened to go in. And the first thing that I did was hug her. And I said, just let it out. Mm-hmm. And I was the only one that she responded to. And she said the reason why she responded to me, because everybody else went into that bathroom and said, well, what's wrong? Stop crying. It's okay. And she said, how do they know it's okay? Why would, and she said, I'm the only one that said, just let it out. And I just hugged her. And sometimes I think people just have to just let it out.
I so agree. People really do just have to let it out. And I think sometimes people, their intention is not want you like to just zip it up, but they just want to fix it. They just don't want you to hurt. So like, hey, don't cry. It's okay. Like my mom will say like, don't cry. It's okay. But I don't think she means it in like a,
right.
Get up, like get yourself together. It's just like wanting to heal someone and wanting to fix what's going on. So I kind of think it depends upon the person when it comes to that situation. Now that we're talking about it a little bit more.
Yeah, like where it's coming from.
Yep.
Because people will come in there and say, fix your hair, fix your makeup, get yourself together. And it's like, no, I don't want to get myself together. I want to be a mess for a minute. And I think people should have the freedom to emotionally be a mess and physically be a mess, and then work on, whatever they need to work on in the process. But Brea, you talked about boundaries, and then we're going to get to number 5 and close out. But you talked about boundaries, and I think it's so important to have boundaries. I talk about boundaries often, but I want to hear from a counselor. I want them to hear from you. Can you talk about how important boundaries are and how someone can set boundaries over their life?
Okay, so that is a deep question. So I'll give a little snippet of boundaries. So boundaries definitely is something that you need to help you know how to treat yourself. You have to have personal boundaries within yourself, but you also need to have boundaries for other people so they know how to treat you. Because when you don't have boundaries, it's like a self-betrayal of yourself. And then you might feel slighted and you start having this internal conflict, or you might feel like people don't respect you, right? But if you don't have boundaries, that's going to be a really big issue, right? So I think the first thing I do with my clients when we start setting boundaries is I help them discuss personal boundaries, because there's 6 boundaries? I'm pretty sure there's time, material, sexual. I can't name them all right now, but I know there's things in front of me. I probably could kill it right now. But you want to start by beginning.
No, but you're giving them homework and you're helping them help them by saying, okay, he's telling you there are all these boundaries and there's a list. So that's your homework, people. Look it up.
Right. You gotta do the work. I always tell my clients, like, I'm here to help, but I'm not gonna finish it for you. Like,
that's right.
I'm not gonna do it. But I think the first thing I'm doing with one of my clients right now, we're working on personal boundaries as far as like, okay, what are the personal boundaries for yourself when it comes to your time and how you can overextend yourself and what you will and what you won't do. So I think the first step is honestly just having certain personal boundaries within yourself. Like me, my personal boundaries are, okay, I need to make sure that I eat, and I cater to myself and I have self-care. Also, my boundaries might be, if someone is going to raise their voice, I'm going to disengage. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I feel like it's toxic, right? So you really just have to narrow down what is important to you. I know it can sound confusing because boundaries can be difficult to understand, but you really just have to really try to get in tune with what's important to you and what you will and will not allow. I think that's the premise of all boundaries.
Well said. What you will or will not allow. There are several types of boundaries. So we both encourage you to look them up, do your own work. Like Iyanla Vanzant says, you got to do the work.
She preaches that. For sure.
But you do, you really have to participate in your own rescue. You got to want more for yourselves, because I guarantee you, if someone that you loved and cared about asked you for help, or asked you to help them find a therapist, or asked you to help in their healing process, you would be gung-ho. You would help them, but you have to help yourself and want to help yourself just as much as you want to help someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to run through, we went through, would you agree, Brea?
Yeah, we went through it pretty well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Coming from a counselor, I appreciate it. And younger than me, I'm listening. That's what you have to do, because some of these young people, and I'm going to say it again, and I always talk about this. So if you know me, or if you've seen some of the things that I've put on social media or talked about on a stage, I always say that. You got to listen to these young people, because they have their hand on the pulse. They're doing it differently. They're allowing people to be free to be who they are. They're allowing people they're challenging other people when something is not right. They're going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 careers. They're not staying at a job for 20 years, getting a cut for retirement, passing away, and not, going on vacation or traveling. They're making their own rules. They truly are in this industry, in counseling, as well as others. So even if you want to reach out to Brea and you're saying, well, she's just a baby, she looks like a baby, she knows what she's talking about, and she's gone to school for this. So what would you say to that person that's maybe 40 and they're like, but she's a baby, she doesn't know what I'm going through, she can't help me? What would you tell them?
Oh my goodness, I have gotten that since I started counseling, and I'm about to be 27 in like 2 weeks. And people still say I look like
my daughter's going to be 20. My daughter's going to be 27 next week, so you're almost the exact same age.
Oh yeah, Taurus life. Okay, but yeah, I got that a lot, honestly, when I started, and I still get it. Like, oh, what do you know? But honestly, I have a great deal of experience. I always say, if you're uncomfortable, I understand you wanting someone with more experience, but I do have experience in X, Y, and Z, and I can be here to help and guide you if you would like that. I always tell my clients, my job is not to give you the answers. My job is to help you along your journey and help you explore.
Come on.
And I'll say, yes, I can definitely do that with you. So if you're willing, we can move forward. But if you're not, I completely understand. I always make sure, that's my spiel. I always make, because I've done it so many times.
I love it.
And usually
that was perfect.
Usually they say
turn
with me,
around.
yeah,
right.
They're like, okay, I understand. But it's like some people come to therapists and think that we have all the answers or we have the keys, and like, we don't. And I'm here to definitely say, like, we don't know everything, no matter how old you are. We're always in a process of growing and learning as humans. So I always say I'm a tool on your tool belt, but I am not the boat to save you. That is not what I do. So
Come on, Brea.
And I will help you, but you are going to do it, and it's going to empower you so much. So for sure.
I love that. So now I definitely know that I can learn from young people. So I'm not one of those older folks, but I love how you combated that, because I can't see anyone after that not wanting to work with you.
Great. That's the point, for sure.
Because you didn't say, well, what do you mean? That was beautiful. And I love that. So I know you said that you win them over with that.
Yeah, because I put it back on them, as far as like, this really isn't about me. This is about you. Mm-hmm. And I do have the knowledge to help you. But if you do feel more comfortable with somebody older, that's okay. You have to do the best for you. So that also empowers them to make their own decision. I'm not making a decision for you. I'm not being like you said, combative, or like trying to, I don't know, just show you all my stars. I'm just telling you what I do. And if you feel like I don't align, that's okay. I won't take it personal. Everybody has their own person. Every client I have hasn't been like the client that should be for me, and that's vice versa,
How about that?
Yep.
How about that? And that's the thing, people, you don't realize you might not be the client for her. So where you're kind of judging her in a sense because she's young, you might not be the client for her. So it goes both ways, like Brea said. And sometimes what I find with older people who may have, gone to school for therapy or counseling, and they're doing that, they might have an old way of thinking and an old way of trying to help you. but a new set of eyes, fresh set of eyes. She just got out of school, so there might be new techniques and new ways and new approaches. So I challenge you just to go with a new approach. Go with someone you don't know. Even if you know a lot of therapists or a lot of counselors, go to someone you don't know to give you a fresh look. Like she said, she's not going to do the work for you. She will give you the tools. She's part of that. She's part of the process to help you along the way. But ultimately, whoever you go to, you're going to have to do your own work. So I just want to go over the steps again, and then I'm going to ask a final question. And I really thank you so much, Brea, for your time. I really do, and your expertise. So we're talking about triggers and identifying triggers. And a lot of people have triggers. A lot of people have buttons, and sometimes people are pushing those buttons, but they can't push those buttons unless you have triggers. And you'll continue to have triggers unless you figure out how to deal with that. And like Brea says, how to unravel the things that are happening. So even if someone pushes that button, it still won't trigger you to behave anything other than yourself. Because you know how sometimes people will push the buttons or it trigger you and you'll say, see what you made me do? Nope, because it's how you responded to what they did. And it's really trying to understand your triggers so no one else can trigger you. But step one is, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. I know my boys probably can't stand me because we'll have group. I do individual and I do group. But in group, I always say, who's in control of you? And they say, I'm in control of myself. And I make sure I say that during every group because they always say, well, he hit me and he did this. I said, but what'd you do? Because you're responsible for your actions. So until you learn how to take hold of that, you're going to let him, take control of what you're doing and how mad you're getting. So I love that point you said.
That's right. Absolutely. And I love that you are doing that and you're teaching them. How cool is that you can teach the younger folks so they're not 40, 50, and 60 years old dealing with some of the things. I think it's so important that you're getting them at that age so they can be effective and healthy and emotionally stable adults. So I think that's awesome that you're working with children and you're pouring into them. So hopefully later on in life, they already know. Can you imagine? I can't even imagine if I knew my triggers at 8 years old.
Yep, for sure. That's my goal. You just put my goal all into what you just said. That's my goal.
Wow.
Especially kids in the foster system. I feel like, not that they're less likely to be successful, but they're more likely to have like behavioral issues as they continue to grow older if they don't get the proper care that they need. Or certain other things come into play. I won't go into that, but it's just awesome to be able to speak something into them and hope it sticks. I'm just planting seeds, and if it sticks, it sticks, and it grows. But if it doesn't, at least I really did try.
Yeah, and maybe I can have you back if you're willing to come. Maybe in June, and we can talk about some other things. Would you be willing to do that? Because people need it.
For sure, I would.
Okay, I thank you. So I'm just going to go through the steps quickly. Step one, identify the emotion that is coming up for you. Number two, identify the sensations in your body. Step three, review possible events that have triggered you. Step four, get specific about why this event triggered you. Step five, take inventory of the events that triggered you. Those are powerful. She is on Instagram at therapy with _Brea, BRREEAA. That's where you can find her. Please follow her. But before we end, I just have one last question for you, Brea. So people, and I know people personally, I know people dealing with this because of the quarantine. People are afraid, now, even to get groceries, people are super, super afraid. Their anxiety is high and they're paranoid to go to the grocery store. Even if they have gloves on, even if they have masks on, they are going through just a severe anxiety attack. Can you just speak briefly on that and what they may be able to do?
I would say that I know here in Texas, there's an option to get your groceries delivered. I don't know how many people feel that's an option for them because there's different safety things that come along with that, but you definitely have an option to get your groceries delivered, or maybe have someone come with you that helps your anxiety feel a little bit better, or have someone that you know that goes on certain days, and have them go for you until you can move past it. Because with severe anxiety like that, it's going to be awfully hard to push yourself. You might have to take baby steps. So I would just say try to find a resource to where you either can get it delivered, or you can have someone support you and go in, or have someone get them for you. You know, those are the options you may have right now, and that's okay, because this is a trying time. So I understand the anxiety completely.
And I have one more suggestion.
Okay.
If you are in Texas and if you are in Pennsylvania, contact Brea.
Okay. For sure. Awesome.
And she can help you. But like she said, best help and Talkspace, and just really Googling the therapists and counselors in your office. Brea said they may have a sliding scale. They may take your insurance, but just do the research to get the help that you need, because you matter. You are important. Your emotional health is important. And if you want to live your best life, people always talk about living my best life. If you are not emotionally well, then you cannot live your best life. If you want an abundant life, seek some help. So Brea, I thank you so much for joining me on Kendell Lenice Live. I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out.
You're so welcome. So everyone, thank you so much for listening to Kendell Lenice Live and watching Kendell Lenice Live. If you are on YouTube, or if you're not, please do me a favor and subscribe, like, and share. It's so important that you do that, especially with topics like this. So Kendell Lenice is my YouTube page. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. Until next time, God bless and peace.